guys, and welcome back to my channel. Thanks for joining me again. If you are new here, then welcome. If you are returning, then thank you once again for all of your support and your kind words of encouragement. They do mean a lot to me, so thank you ladies out here who are watching and have been watching. As I am sharing this with you guys, you may notice that I'm either thinking back or fumbling or stumbling a little bit with my words, and that is just because this isn't something that's easy for me to talk about. And secondly, this was almost 8 years ago where this story began at this point. So just because of the trauma, I definitely have put up some walls and mental blocks in my mind just to kind of as a protection or a defense mechanism. So if I'm pausing or trying to find my words, please forgive me. I'm being as vulnerable and open and honest as possible, so bear that in mind. I kind of gained some courage for this video from one of the ladies in my groups on Baby Center, which was Jade, aka Sarah. I know you watch, so if you're watching, I want to say thank you to you for just giving me the courage to be able to share on my platform. I know it helps other people being able to relate and hearing other women's stories, and that is why I feel like it's important for me to share mine today. So in January of 2011, I was living in Hawaii. I was going to college. I was 18 at the time, and I was also engaged. I just kind of fell off one day. I mean, I was a college student, so I did a lot of activities, but I just fell off. I wind up finding out that I was pregnant. I was just kind of a ball of emotions. I was excited, yet a little bit nervous and scared because I knew my mom was like not going to be happy. She was going to be disappointed. But I just said, you know what? This is what has happened, so I'm just going to move forward with it. I told my at the time fiance, and he was definitely very excited. He was a little nervous too, but he was older than me, so he was definitely excited. I immediately called my doctor, got it confirmed, and was going through all that normal stuff when you first find out. It had been like about a week. Me and my fiance decided that we were going to go on a bike ride because that was our normal routine. We would ride anywhere from my house to, you know, a mall or a park or anything like that. It wasn't anything out of the norm for us. We go on this bike ride. Like halfway through the bike ride, my stomach starts to hurt. I'm starting to feel cramps, and I was just like, okay, what is going on? Next thing I know, I went to the bathroom and my underwear were soaked. It was like I got my very first period and didn't know it was coming. After that, I was just like, okay, I need to get to the hospital. By the time I could clean myself off just enough to be able to go back outside, the pain had definitely intensified. It got to the point where we actually had to ditch the bikes and hop on the next bus that happened to roll by, because I just needed to get to the hospital as quickly as possible at this point. By the time we made it to the hospital, I had on shorts and my shorts were soaked. I went into the ER. I was pretty much immediately seen. So they went ahead and did an ultrasound, and the doctor or the nurse or whomever who was in the ER, they come in, and I'm in so much pain at this point that I can barely hear what's going on. I just am like, it was that kind of pain that you don't care what's going on around you. You just want the pain to stop. That's how bad it was. She was probably talking for about 15 minutes, and out of everything that she had said, the only word that I heard was miscarrying. At that point, I was heartbroken. I think I was just, even in that state of shock and in pain, I was just so heartbroken that everything that I had thought would come to be over the last week or so was now not only not happening, but I had to go through all of this pain and all of this trauma for it to not happen. She basically said there is absolutely nothing we can do about it. We can send you home just with some medication for your pain. You will basically just have to go through this at home over the course of the next week. After I got out of the hospital, I was even just angry with my fiance. I mean, I think he tried to hand me some paperwork or my discharge papers, and I literally like slapped them out of his hand because I was just mad that this was happening to me at the time. He was very understanding and tried to be as comforting as he could possibly be, but nothing in that moment really could help or shake the feeling that I had. I don't even think at that point he could actually comfort me because I was having trouble processing what exactly was happening. About 2 days went by and I went to the bathroom. I just felt a lot of pressure, and I felt what was almost similar to a large clot passing. And lo and behold, I looked in the toilet and there was the sac. And I didn't know how to really feel or process it. I just stared into the toilet for what felt like the longest time. And I think I was just kind of in shock. Like, I couldn't believe that it was actually happening, and I had to go through that at home, and I had to go through it alone. I don't think I can ever really forget what that looked like. It was definitely just a painful process. So fast forward over the next couple of months, I was starting that process of healing and kind of processing what exactly happened and how I was going to try and cope with it. Well, about 5 months later, I had just rolled up on my 19th birthday. I found out that I was pregnant again. Now, this time that I found out, I don't even think I was scared or nervous. I was like over the moon because I had just gone through that loss just 5 months earlier. I was like, great, I am being given a second chance right now. This is going to be such an amazing blessing. And I was really ecstatic. I was so excited that it was the middle of the night when I took a test, and I actually sent a picture to my fiance like in the middle of the night saying, oh my gosh, like, look. And he was definitely excited because that was something that he looked for, however short it was, he still looked forward to it as well. I told my mom, and she was definitely not happy, but she said, you know, like any of your other siblings, we, meaning her and my dad, are going to support you through whatever you need. We're here. So that was great that I felt like I had more support going into the second time around. We had decided, because we had been living in Hawaii for a few years at that point, and we decided that we wanted to move back home to Pennsylvania, just because being away from family, it was causing both me and my mom to become homesick, and we just felt like Hawaii ultimately wasn't the place for us at that point in our lives. So over the summer, we moved back to Pennsylvania. The plan was for my fiance to relocate to Pennsylvania closer to the time that the baby was going to be born. I was living with my parents, and we were just starting to settle into our new apartment. I was just trying to mentally prepare myself for motherhood. I was trying to figure out the logistics of how things were going to work. I was trying to figure out when exactly my fiance was going to be coming and where we would eventually be living with a newborn. And I was just trying to figure all of those things out. It was about almost 5 months into my pregnancy. I went to a new doctor because I had only had an appointment with my doctor back in Hawaii. Got a new doctor in Pennsylvania, and when I went in, everything was good. Baby was good. I was good. Everything looked all right on the surface. And then she said, we are just going to do some routine labs, and I will probably have you come back in a few more weeks. In August, I got the labs done. they called me back and say, hey, we need to schedule you for another appointment. I got scheduled in for that appointment, and during that appointment they let me know that they would do their normal STD and STI panels and all this other blood work and all this other testing. And I was like, sure, fine, whatever. I'm thinking like, I am totally good, no problem. Well, it was probably only 3 or 4 days after that appointment, I get a call from my doctor's nurse. She says, can you give me the closest pharmacy to you because I need to get your prescription in ASAP. And I give her the pharmacy, and then she goes in to tell me, she's like, look, I know this is not what you are expecting to hear. However, we got one of your lab results back and you have an STI. So at this point, I am just like, are you kidding me? You know, she's trying to reassure me and tell me that it's fine, it's going to be okay, it's treatable. We just give you a set of pills and you take them and it will be okay. But as she's saying all of this, literally all I can think about is the fact that I never stepped out on my relationship. I hadn't been with anyone since I had been with my fiance, and before I was with him, I got checked out for everything. And I was just, at that point, I was beside myself. I kind of kept my composure on the phone with the nurse to make sure I got everything I needed, but I was really beside myself. So after I hung up the phone with her, I immediately called in my prescription. They told me that they could have it ready within about 20 minutes, and I lived right up the street from the pharmacy. I went to the pharmacy to pick up my medication and took that. I just sat in the car for a while and just was really trying to just mull over what I was going to do, because at this point it's like, okay, my fiance has definitely cheated on me. He has definitely stepped out of our relationship. The last time we had been intimate was back in May when I conceived. It essentially had been 5 months of me having an STI that was not treated. That could have been treated so much sooner, could have just prevented other issues that occurred. And I was just angry because had he, you know, just said, hey, I messed up, I would have immediately got myself checked out. I would have been angry, but I would have been able to make those decisions for not only my health, but the health of the baby that I was carrying. So when I was in the car, I was just like, you know what? I am going to call him and confront him about this immediately. I'm not going to sit on it. I'm not going to wait, because I was livid. Can you imagine putting all your trust in somebody, someone who you are not only planning on marrying, but pregnant with their child, and that person decides to cheat on you with someone else and doesn't even think twice about their child or think twice about their partner, and they don't even care? Like, that still just baffles me now, because even if you were concerned about me leaving, even if you were, you know, worried about me being angry at you or not wanting to talk to you or deal with you anymore, the least you could have did was told me, because that information affects our unborn child. So I called him and I confronted him, and he lied a lot. It took about an hour to just get him to admit it. And I just had to throw it in his face that, look, I already know. The reason I am so angry is because I know through medical means, and you didn't have the courage to just come and tell me that this is what you did. Instead, he chose to continue to lie about it, then got himself treated for it, but didn't tell me. At this point, I was just done with the relationship. I wasn't going to hold it against him when it came to the baby being born or seeing the baby or anything like that, but As far as the intimacy was concerned, I was completely done with that. It went a step further, and I went back to the doctor, and they gave me some unfortunate news about the baby. Long story short, I was not able to have the baby. I found out like so quickly, like all these things were back to back. Like I found out about what he did, and then literally the following week, I was back in the doctor's office, and all of my dreams were basically being shattered once again. Um, I guess it just saddens me because it makes me think of like what I could have done to have prevented it. I definitely could have been treated sooner, and that may have affected the way that things played out, but I definitely struggle occasionally with, those decisions. To leave a doctor's office one day with a sonogram in your hand and to be back in that same doctor's office a week later and have them tell you that I am sorry, but there isn't anything that we can do for you aside from a D&C to help you pass this. It's just, it leaves you feeling hopeless. It leaves you feeling like you are backed into a corner. You have no options. A decision is being forced upon you, something that you really don't have any say-so in. And it's all happening just so fast. And why I say it's happening so fast is because I was in that kind of crucial stage of development where they basically were like, we need to intervene now, or it's going to be a major surgery instead of a procedure, so to speak. So they didn't want to have to try and cut me open, versus being able to do a less invasive, I say that it's all invasive, but a less invasive procedure. I just felt like I was just living in this endless nightmare. Here it is at the beginning of the year. I first found out I was pregnant and was supposed to be planning for that. I miscarried during that pregnancy and got pregnant 5 months later, and then almost 5 months into my pregnancy, here it is, I am in the same predicament but worse. It was like the Twilight Zone from hell is the only way I can truly describe it. With the second pregnancy being as though I carried for so long and I was buying maternity clothes and all of these things, it just hit me in a totally different way. I was definitely much more attached to that baby. I don't really know how to describe it. I was just that much more attached and connected. I had been growing a human being inside of me for nearly 5 months. So it was definitely a lot more difficult for me to deal with. I think my brain pretty much just went into survival mode, so to speak, because that experience was just so traumatic that I think had my brain not gone into what are the logistics of things, how are you going to handle this kind of step by step, and I kind of set the emotional piece of it kind of aside and just really focused on the medical side of things and the logistics of it. I think I had to deal with it that way at that time, because if I would have dealt with things emotionally and prioritized me dealing with things emotionally, I think I would have just been really messed up. I would have made some really poor decisions at that time, and it just wouldn't have been what was overall best for me. So I think my approach kind of confused a lot of people because they were like, how are you seeming like you're dealing with this well, and or it seems like you're not as emotional or devastated about it as, you know, somebody thinks I should be on the outside. And it was just really a matter of me saying, like, I am devastated, but I'm also in shock right now. Like, I literally cannot believe this is happening. On the one hand, I feel like I'm going to wake up tomorrow and it's going to be a brand new day and this was all going to be a bad dream. On the other hand, it's like I have to be an adult and make certain decisions. So if I let my emotions kind of dictate what decisions I'm making, ultimately that might not land me making the best decision. But it was definitely hard, you know, especially at that age, being 19 and just having to deal with those traumas, and both of them were traumas related to pregnancy. So it definitely now amplifies the emotional component of me trying to conceive with my husband now, just because I've gone through a lot, and I went through that in an earlier stage of my life than I think I was emotionally ready for. Those losses never leave. I won't say I think about them all the time, but once you go through that, you just truly, you never forget. I mean, I had a name picked out and everything, and even throughout my current TTC process, it still gets me a little bit choked up some days if I, you know, have to talk about why I'm more emotional, or why I'm so invested in this process, or why it's so important for me to conceive and carry my own child, and why it's so important for me to experience pregnancy and being a mom. I think had I not gone through the trauma that I did in the past, I would have found those things important, but they wouldn't be nearly as important to me now as they are. And this is something that I needed to also explain to my husband, because he didn't understand initially why it was so important, why children in general were so important for me, and why I would get so emotional over things. He just couldn't really compartmentalize in his mind why it was that deep, so to speak. And it kind of took him a while, and me really just being very vulnerable and very upfront about what happened and how traumatic the experience was and how it's affected even the person that I am today. It took that in the right setting for him to really get it and really understand. And, you know, this even comes up now. We go to, you know, counseling, and this even comes up now sometimes in our counseling when I do get emotional about certain things, just kind of pinpointing those reasons, like this trauma that's in your past, however far back it may be, it's still trauma that has shifted and shaped kind of the person that you are today because of those experiences. And this is why it's okay to be more emotional about these things. And I'm just sharing this with you because if you've gone through this, sometimes you need to just be able to tell either your partner, be it your husband, boyfriend, whomever, or another family member, hey, this really impacted me on a deep-seated level, and this is not something that can just be washed away or wiped away. I am going to be so grateful when I finally do conceive and get to go through pregnancy and carry a child and have my healthy rainbow baby on the other end of it. But that is never going to replace the child that I lost. However, I will have a far greater and just a tremendous amount of appreciation when I finally do get my chance and finally do get my turn. So I say this to say to you ladies out there, you are not alone. There are others out there who definitely understand where you're coming from, and I definitely encourage you guys to open up and share with your spouse or family, whatever your support system is. If it affects you on that level, especially when it comes to TTCing, definitely open up and share, because no one really talks to you about it because it's kind of a sensitive or touchy topic. But you never know. It could be your mother or your sister who have gone through something similar and you just didn't know about it. And it also gives your partner a really good opportunity to get to understand you in an entirely different way. It can be a huge eye-opener for them. One other thing I wanted to address, kind of because this kind of ties into it a little bit, just on the TTC forums, as well as sometimes even on here on YouTube and Instagram, other places, other forms of social media, you have some women who, I'll say, being a little bit more aggressive in their opinions when it comes to other women who are newly trying to conceive. What I have to say about that is that as women, we need to be supportive of our TTC sisters and supportive of the next woman. I understand that some women may be more frustrated because they're like, I have been trying for X amount of months or X amount of years, or spent thousands of dollars, or put all these things into trying to conceive a child. And I understand the frustration that comes when you have this TTC newbie saying, oh, I've been trying for 2 months and it hasn't happened yet. Or, oh, I've been trying for a month and I just thought it would happen on the first try and I'm so sad about it. There can sometimes just be a lack of empathy. But at the end of the day, you never know what someone else has gone through. When I had my miscarriages, I wasn't trying to TTC at all. I wasn't doing a great job of preventing it, obviously, but I wasn't trying to TTC. But I just say that to say we need to be nicer to each other in the TTC community, regardless of where you're at in your journey. You should never be saying to a woman or a fellow TTCer, oh, you have no right to say this, or you have no right to feel the way you feel because you've only been trying for X amount of months, or whatever the case may be. Ultimately, unless you are that person's spouse or unless you live with them, you are only looking into a keyhole of that woman's universe. You are only seeing a fraction of her life and her past life experiences. Some women may look at me and on my channel and say, well, you've only been trying for this long, so this shouldn't be so emotional or so disappointing or devastating for you. But because of my past experiences and my past trauma, no matter whether or not I was trying, the fact of the matter is I had an emotional connection to those children that I did lose. Because of that situation, I do feel more emotional now. I am more sensitive, and each month that I don't conceive, it is that much more disappointing because of those losses. So yeah, I just hope that here in this community we can all just really work on uplifting each other, staying positive, and not judging the next woman and her path or her journey, because each woman is different. We do all want the blessing of motherhood and the blessing of conceiving and having our healthy baby at the end. So that is all I have for you ladies today. This was definitely something different for me to share with you guys. So thank you for watching. I do hope that it helps at least one woman out there who have gone through similar traumas. And it is okay to not be okay. It's okay to feel angry. It's okay to feel sad. It's okay to feel whatever it is that you feel after this loss. It is completely fine for you to go through whatever emotions you need to go through to process it. But ultimately, you will get through it. I won't say it gets easier with time. You just learn how to cope with it better through time. If you are going through this currently, then I am just reaching out and giving you a virtual hug, just because I know that this is definitely one of the hardest things in my life that I have ever gone through, and probably one of the hardest things that I or will go through, or at least the most traumatic thing that I've gone through. So if you feel like you are alone or you just need somebody to talk to or anything like that, you can definitely shoot me a message. I am pretty quick to respond. And if I can help provide some comfort for one of you ladies out there, anything like that, or you just need somebody to vent to because you don't have a support system who understands, feel free to message me. That is all I have for you ladies. So I hope that you have a blessed and wonderful week. And for any of you out there who are currently TTC and currently on your journey, then just stay strong and stay positive. I have faith that we are going to get these blessings and these rainbows at the end of this process. And no, we don't know how long it may take, but we definitely have to stay in the fight for it. So I hope you guys enjoy your week, and I will talk to you next time. Bye.